Big fam. Good morning. We made it. Warm weather. I'm in t-shirts and shorts. Phil's Figs swag. If you'd like one of these shirts, I have them online in white and in this slate. philsfigs.com. Check it out. But today, figs and coffee. I have a damaged fig tree and I got some stuff that I'm going to use to repair the trunk and protect it for years to come. And this tree was damaged from a late freeze a year or two ago. And then the bark decided to keep dying back and dying back, yet half of the bark on the tree is still alive. It's my Figo Preto. It's one of my favorite trees. And patching it up with this plant guard will help it for years to come heal and prevent further damage down the road. I've had this Figo Preto since 2016, I think, and I bought it as like a 1 or 2 year old tree. And I bought it up in Pennsylvania at the time, and it's come a long way down here to Wilmington, North Carolina, and is now an 8-year-old tree, and she's pretty big. And the damaged part is not up here where all these awesome leaves are, it's down here on the trunk. And I want to talk about this because I have branches on half of the trunk that are doing okay, and I've debated trimming the trunk down, but I want to try to save as much as the tree I can by using this 3-in-1 plant guard I have through IV Organics. Let's walk through it and I'll show you how I'm doing it, which is just by the directions. Keep it easy. All right, it's a beautiful morning here. Everything's alive. I turned the bocce cord into a full-blown nursery. You can see behind me. And it's really coming together. Everything's waking up. Beautiful light out. I got all the babies. They're just beginning to grow now. They'll wake up early and then they will just kind of get comfortable in their new environments, especially if I've up-potted them into new pots. Beautiful day here in Wilmington, North Carolina. All right, Fig Fam, we are going to repair that Figo Preto tree. And I have my handy dandy 3-in-1 plant guard here. There's a lot of great plant guards out there that are great against things like sun scald, which you'll see what sun scald can do in the wintertime to the trunk of a fig tree. And I'll show you what I happen to do out here. And I kind of thought it would just heal on its own, and it's actually gotten worse over time. And so we're going to use some of this and apply it to the trunk to help preserve the fig tree, because half of the trunk is deteriorated, the other half is still alive. And you'll see that in a lot of fig trees. They're quite resilient, but they'll slowly break down over time until they essentially can bite the dust, if you will. So this works really great against also insects and rodents, and I like it because it is organic, and I try to aim organic first. You don't have to. Everybody has a different soil environment. Everyone has a different climate, so you have to find what works best for you. But we are going to go ahead and follow directions. Read it before I started this video, so I'm going to go ahead and pop this open, and there should be a packet inside. Make sure you get something that can just get under the edge there. Well, that was easy. All right. So what's great about these, and this is 1 pint, is that you can add all the contents. So you have your powder and you have your vial of oil. But what we are going to do is we are going to save my fig trees. And then I'm going to have enough in this whole can that I have enough insects out here and other bugs. This would be great to have because we do get the Ambrosia beetle, and they make little bores into the trunk of the tree, and then you have to chop the whole tree down. If it's not an established fig tree, that can be very difficult for it to recover. If it is, it's a rejuvenation prune year, but you're sacrificing all of your figs for that year essentially, unless you're in a long growing season. And it depends on the fig variety. I just put that vial of oil in on top of that powder, and I put it right back in the can. And what I'm going to do is you're supposed to fill it up to the top with water. I have my fancy stirring tool, which is a piece of bamboo. You don't need to be fancy with it, just efficient. So now we have our oil in, we have our powder in, and we're going to fill it up to the top. Also, dad joke, my name is also Philip. Ah! All right, coffee's hitting me. I'm excited to garden this morning. Bear with me. All right, I'm going to stir this up. I made pancakes this morning. This is the same deal. Stir it together like you're making pancake mix. Whisk it in there, make sure there's no clumps. I'm sure you're allowed to use like a spoon or a fork too. This stick should do just the trick though. And what you're essentially making is a paint. A protective paint coating made out of organic materials, which is like music to my ears as an environmental scientist. So there's a lot of other stuff. You don't have to use IV Organics. It's really good, and it's really good organic stuff, and it'll last you. But there's other plant band-aids and pastes out there that you can apply even as small as pruning your fig tree, some of those branches you prune off of there. You can certainly use this too, especially if you live in an environment that's prone to some sort of wood disease. If you're in the deep south, it might be a great option. If you are in a place that gets a lot of sun, so I live further south, this might be a wise thing for you to apply to your fig trees, especially on the bases, especially if they're young. And we're going to do that today. So after I do this Figo Preto, I am actually going to apply it to a bunch of my young fig trees just in the base of the trunk to prevent issues like this happening in the future. I pruned this after it had a severe dieback. The reason it had a dieback is that we had a late freeze after it had already broken dormancy, and that is really tough. So see here, it's a little lumpy on this, but now we have this nice mixture. It's a little lumpy on here, but it's this nice clean mixture. And what I'm going to use is a paintbrush. Make sure it's clean. It is a used paintbrush. I had stained a bench like years ago with it, but it's nice and clean. We are going to go apply this to that fig tree. There you go. That was easy. It was a short conversation away from getting it all mixed. So if we move this leaf, you can see the damage. You can see all that bark has died back all the way down. It may even be worth it to prune it, but I have growth on these branches here. If you zoom out, you can see all this has died back and it keeps rotting down. And that could be a result of sun scald. And what happens when this gets open, it gets exposed to disease. So despite the whole tree itself being really healthy here, I have these new scaffolding branches I put out, and on this side as well, it puts it at risk for getting sick, stunting its growth, or even dying. So there are options where I could cut it back to here, which might be a future option. But for now, to save these branches, I am going to cover this with that protection. And I got it in gray to match the gray bark of this. And what happens in the winter is cooler and warmer temperatures will cause this bark here to contract and expand as it gets warmer and colder. And then that sunburn, that sun scald can help break it down as well. So you have two things kind of attacking it, especially when the wood is sick or dying. And that opens it up to bacteria disease, fungal disease, and general bugs and pests as well. So it's already been exposed to a lot of that. We are going to go ahead and cover it up. All right, Fig Fam, let's get cracking. I'm going to remove some of these as it's mid-spring. We can get rid of some of these leaves. It's going to grow plenty this year. We're going to have a lot of branches coming out this way. So to save these branches and this leaf growth, I'm going to go ahead and try to patch this up. But I know at some point I am going to have to prune this back. Here's my mix. It's all mixed up. It looks great, actually. Here's my handy paintbrush. It's a little big for it, but I'm not too worried about it. The idea is I just want to be able to brush it on, because this will help the healing process. I got gray for fig trees because of their gray bark and trunk. Probably use a smaller paintbrush, but again, I want it to be easy for you guys. And if you don't need to have the exact solution, right? We just want it to do the job well with what we have. There are some pastes out there. You can get this in a gallon thing, which is a lot. I'm going to cover up this whole thing, and we're going to track its progress. And then I get over here, and that's where my live bark is, on the other side of this. Look at that. What a nice, thick, hardy coating to emulate the trunk. The trunk will never be there. We can't make an exact replica of it, but we can get pretty close with good protection. If you want to take a look in here. You just want to make a nice layer. You can see where it becomes alive again, right here where the branches are coming out. This part here, all healthy bark, but it's on its way out. So what I'm going to do, kind of stop the rot. I'm going to stop the rot in place. at least for another season to see if it can live its life. I'm going to cover that space up. There we go. Now this is like after the fact of damage. It also operates as a preventative tool, so we don't get to a lot of these issues in the first place. And this is still a newer product for me, and I'm excited because I thought I was out of luck. I thought I would have to prune this all the way back again, but this will help extend the life of my fig tree, and I can hold off doing any sort of rejuvenation pruning for a while. So I'm out here with the birds in the morning, and then while I'm here, we are going to get the base of the trunk. All right, so look at that. It looks good on all angles. I got it all covered up. I'm going to let that dry. And then while we're here, I'm going to paint the trunk of this. We have a whole 3/4 left of this pine to get through. There's nothing more Bob Ross in the garden right now than painting on trees, on happy trees. The dad jokes continue. Although the tree's already here, we're just painting on the trees. They are the canvas. Happy trees. You could paint a tree on the tree. In the comments, please tell me to stop making these jokes, or please tell me to keep going, because if not, I will just keep going. I'm going to go ahead and do this to protect the rest of the trunk from further deterioration, especially on a damaged tree like this, especially on such a beautiful tree like this Figo Preto. I mean, guys, Figo Pretos and Black Madeiras, also Black Tuscan in the mix, have stunning leaves. They have stunning fruit. They're beautiful, beautiful trees. And I have my 3 scaffolding branches. So they're a slower grower than, you know, like the Coledoms as well, all these nice varieties. They grow a little slower than your standard brown turkeys and Celeste. So you just want to care for them, especially when they get to a certain level of establishment. Not to say that figs aren't resilient, but you want to do the best you can with what they have to help maximize their growth. But guys, there you go. I just painted the trunk in 10 minutes. I need another cup of coffee though. But what we have here is about 2/3 left of the can. I'm going to go around and I'm going to get the base of my younger trees that also had some rejuvenation pruning, that also had trunks with some dieback from that late freeze I had a year or 2 ago, because we're still seeing the effects of it, and just to protect them from sun-scald insects and rodents. Now, I don't have a bad rodent problem outside of my squirrels, and they don't really go for the trunk. They just steal my figs, and that's going to be a whole nother video. So let's get some other fig trees. It's really important I do this to my other trees that I just put in the ground here, guys. Got 8.5 foot spacing. You guys will love this little corridor I have. My Black Madeira, my White Madeira, my Campaniere. So let's go ahead and protect these trunks real quick. And it's great. And you put it right around the base of the trunk. I pruned over here to help isolate a main stem. So this one isn't damaged. It just had some pruning on the base. You get a nice healthy coating all around. I have kids and I love it. I love having their stuff around. Sometimes they hit these trees though. Okay, kind of excited. But I mean, what? It took like 20 seconds, so that's great. This part down here had already started rotting, and what I'm going to do is see how this got piled up from mowing and the winter time. It's a little shaky there, which is important with young trees to keep them bound with a stake. What I'm going to do is I'm going to reinforce any sort of protection, make my volcano again for watering. This is just easy to water with when you make a sort of volcano like that. I'll go ahead and patch her up, seal it in, seal. But shout out to For Organics. If you guys are curious, I have Fill 10 at checkout. Just apply that and you get a 10% discount. But that team over there is on top of their game, especially with organic stuff. And I've been really pleased with their fertilizer. I've been really pleased with this plant guard. So I am excited. That should finish her up nicely. And then we're going to do one more big fig tree just so you guys can see. But I kind of like this, especially when you have maybe your base trunk, some scaffolding branches in there, my Peter's honey. So I'm just going to cover that up real quick in like cases like this where that sun scald, that expansion and contraction of moisture from the sun as it grows and deteriorates, kind of creates a wound. So we want to patch up these wounds. Same right there, same right there. this is aiding in that healing process, right? So those damaging spots that I just pointed out, that's just when maybe I was newer at growing the fig trees, but I pruned the branch too far back, and it takes some time to get up and around the wounds with the bark. And if it can't make it, it kind of tires out and starts deteriorating. And maybe that's when we have to come in with an extra step of this plant guard. But I'm just gonna cover it right here. I'm done getting branches from this part of the tree, so I am not worried about covering up these scaffolding branches. I just want to make sure that it lasts for years to come. Boom, 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 boom. Happy trees. When in doubt, Bob Ross it. I'm going to get up top here where I see more of those damaged pruned areas. And that's on me. I probably could have done a better job leaving some wood open there, but I am not expecting any more branch growth from there. I pruned this tree perfectly. I want to kind of keep it that way. So this is that, maybe that like hedging tool. So once I've isolated how I want my tree to grow to keep the bark protected and healthy here, because I've created an open center, I'm just gonna cover it up with some nice organic protectant. And I go right down to the base because that's where you're gonna get your exposure to all those other creatures. That's where they're gonna sneak in or just start gnawing away, even if it's fungal and bacterial, because those are the ones that reside in the soil itself. And if you just get anything that's kind of existing in there that's less than desirable, that's where you're gonna start encountering issues. Looking pretty good, and this is what I would do. Like, this tree is again about 7 years old. I pruned it plenty of times, but it just has some scarring, so I wanted to protect it from some scarring where you can still walk amongst it. But there you go. I've covered up those scars with this 3-in-1 plant guard. See the orchard. So you guys get to see me cover up a mature tree. You guys get to see me cover up some immature trees. I have about a half a can left, and I want to go ahead and get as many trees as I can while I have it available to me. But that's the goal with this, is to protect my trees for the long term. Because I prune them a lot to sell cuttings, to propagate, because I get heavy sun in the summertime, especially on this side and on the far side where you saw me do those younger trees. And when I see late frost and freeze damages, I can remediate it with this plant guard. Everybody in every part of the country has their own slew of pests, diseases, and problems, and I've kind of noticed that this plant guard seems to cover the gambit while also being organic at the same time. So I wanted to show you specifically, and I'm gonna run you right over here. Whoa! The fig tree that I had the most issues with, because last year I had to prune it back just to this. It sprouted these branches from below, it sprouted suckers out from below, and it actually sprouted these branches on the side, but all the bark deteriorated and the wood died. But I still have some viable wood on this side. So what did I do? I covered the entire trunk with this plant guard to try to keep these branches going as long as possible, right? So there are other options out there. Again, find what works best for your price point, which works best for your climate, which works best for your availability. But if you want something that works well, check out what I'm using, this Ivy Organics, and we're gonna follow along with it. So see how it's doing throughout the year. It's already drying, which is really cool. And I am excited to keep applying this year over year if I need to, but I don't think I'll need to apply it that often. And I'm excited to see that it's not like neon green or neon orange, like it's this beautiful color matching thing that's also organic. So I'm not worried about it seeping into the water. I'm not worried about it getting on my other fruits and veggies. It's made from all natural materials. So I'm hoping this does the trick to keep this Figo Preto safe, because it's one of my favorite trees that I own. It's a little tricky to propagate, but it's the same as Black Madeira. It is an unbelievable, precocious, tasty fig tree that gives raspberry flavored figs at the end of September. So thanks for tuning in, guys. Appreciate it. Holler with questions, and I'll talk to you soon, Fig Fam. Cheers.